UFOs, or UAPs as they are referred to in our modern world, what are they? Do they exist? Are they actual real craft from another world or dimension, or can they simply be explained away as secret government aircraft, not unlike the SR-71 Blackbird or the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter? And speaking of UAPs, what are those crazy orbs we keep seeing? Is any of this real? That's the question on today's episode as we take a deep dive into the mysterious world of unidentified aerial phenomenon. Buckle up, my friends. This gets interesting real quick.
Are you not curious? Who is this man? This enigma? Yes, a man of many talents, but he is a glitch in the system. He spends his nights scouring texts for traces of lost knowledge. We dare stand by and turn a blind eye to this man speaking on a public forum. It is all in the file. I present to you on this day the Ryan Files.
So let's dive in, my friends. This is a wildly broad subject, and it will have a massive impact on things we will be discussing in the future. I've said all along that this is a journey podcast where we learn together as we go along. Now, to make this journey easier to understand and digest, it's important to, once again, lay a foundation of understanding. So let's try to wrap our heads around UFOs or UAPs. Now, for those of you who don't know, UFOs are unidentified flying objects. This is the term that has been used for decades, and I think most humans are familiar with it. Now, the term UAP was first used in 2021 when the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, or ODNI, released a report called Preliminary Assessment Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. Some think that the term UFO is synonymous only with extraterrestrial beings or aliens. And I can understand that assessment. The term UAP makes a subtle but significant shift. A UAP encompasses a broader definition, including any unidentified anomalous phenomenon in the sky. This is important to remember, and we'll get to that in a second. Now, just understand that whether it's UFOs or UAPs, the essence remains the same. The truth is, UAP is the preferred term in government circles, and it doesn't exclude the possibility of extraterrestrial origins. And so the scientific academic community can now feel more comfortable embracing these unidentified objects without the fear of sounding like some, crazed UFO conspiracists. But again, the essence of the term remains the same. God forbid an academic using the same term as lowly normal people like you and me. So throughout this episode, I may use either term. We're talking about things that are unidentified. We're talking about things that are flying or in the air. We are talking about physical objects or phenomenon. But that last letter is the key. And in my mental process, the difference between UFOs and UAPs, I think it's important to realize that the government and academics also notice that there has to be a distinction. You see, there are two basic categories of UAPs. Craft or objects, which have more of a physical nature, and orbs, which, who knows what they are? Energy, spirits, dimensional entities? Your guess is as good as mine. We won't spend a great deal today talking about the orbs, although I do find them quite fascinating. And you can hardly watch an episode of The Curse of Skinwalker Ranch without, seeing video evidence of them. The majority of videos I have from friends around town here who have all seen UAPs, they're all closer to orbs than physical craft. And I've yet to find any kind of reasonable explanation for these balls of light. But they sure know how to put on a show. Here's one of my favorite examples, which happened over the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, Israel in 2011. A bright ball of light hangs over the old city. Strange on its own, but then it drops down just above the buildings, hovers, and amazingly zooms straight up, literally in the blink of an eye. Watch this last part again. The ball of light seems to be just above roof level. There's a bright flash that stuns the onlookers. It rockets up, and out of frame in less than a second. Now watch again as different people witness the same phenomenon from 4 different camera angles. Of course, there are as many debunkers of this video as there are believers, which always seems to be the case. Though I don't see anyone debunking the same kind of orbs we see once again on Skinwalker Ranch. I'm sure we will talk about these mysterious orbs more in the future, but for now, let's get into the meat of this episode, UFOs. Why did I use the term UFO? Because I want to talk about physical objects, actual craft, if you will. There are countless records of UFOs in antiquity, too many to mention, but allow me to share with you just a few of the highlights. In 1440 BC, a royal scribe of the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III reported an unidentified flying object recording, "In the year 22 of the 3rd month of winter, 6th hour of the day, the scribes of the House of Life found it was a circle of fire that was coming in the sky. It had no head, the breath of its mouth had a foul odor. Its body 1 rod long and 1 rod wide. It had no voice. They went to the pharaoh to report it. Now after some days had passed, these things became more numerous in the sky than ever. They shone more in the sky than the brightness of the sun and extended to the limits of the 4 supports of the heavens. Powerful was the position of the fire circles. The army of the pharaoh looked on with him in their midst. And what happened was ordered by the pharaoh to be written in the annals of the House of Life, so that it be remembered forever." It was the Romans who really accumulated a number of reported sightings. These sightings were made by such reputable historians as Pliny the Elder, Livy, and Plutarch. They are widely regarded as accurate because of the rigorous procedures Roman authorities demanded before any event could be recorded in the official annals. Here are just a few from the official Roman record. In 218 BC, a spectacle of ships gleamed in the sky. In 217 BC, at Arpi, round shields were seen in the sky. In 212 BC, at Rete, a huge stone was seen flying about. In 173 BC, at Lanuvium, a spectacle of a great fleet was said to have been seen in the sky. In 154 BC, at Kamsa, weapons appeared flying in the sky. In 104 BC, the people of Ameria and Tudor observed weapons in the sky rushing together from east and west, and those from the west being routed. In 100 BC, probably at Rome, a round shield burning and emitting sparks ran across the sky from west to east at sunset. In 43 BC, at Rome, a spectacle of defensive and offensive weapons was seen to rise from the earth to the sky with a clashing noise. Now let's move on to the Far East. In 1235, there was an official investigation into a UFO presence carried out in Japan. Here's the recount told by official historical documents. One night, a high officer named General Yoritsume and his army were settling down in their camp when they spotted mysterious lights in the sky. The general and his troops watched in astonishment as these lights performed amazing aerobatic movements, such as circling endlessly and flying in loops. Baffled by the bizarre aerial display, General Yoritsume ordered a scientific investigation of what he had just witnessed. The explanation Yoritsume's scientists gave the general oozed with comfort and calm. The whole thing is completely natural, Yoritsume was told about the mysterious lights. It's only the wind making the stars sway. Getting closer to our modern era, there was a celestial phenomenon over the German city of Nuremberg on April 14, 1561. It was widely seen by the entire city. We're talking about a mass sighting. And an illustration was printed in the news later in the same month. Check out this article. In the morning of April 14, 1561, at daybreak between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun. And then it was seen in Nuremberg, in the city, before the gates and in the country, by many men and women. At first there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircular arcs, just like the moon in its last quarter. and in the sun, above and below, and on both sides, the color was blood. There stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. Likewise, there stood on both sides, and as a torus about the sun, such blood-red ones, and other balls in large number, about 3 in a line and 4 in a square, also some alone. In between these globes were visible a few blood-red crosses, between which there were blood-red stripes becoming thicker to the rear, and in the front malleable like the rods of green grass, which were intermingled among them 2 big rods, one on the right, the other to the left, and within the small and big rods there were 3, also 4 and more globes. These all started a fight among themselves, so the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the one standing on both sides. Thereafter, the globes standing outside the sun and the small and large rods flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth amongst themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and again out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down to the earth, as if all burned, and they then wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After all of this, there was something like a black spear, very long and thick, sighted. The shaft pointed to the east. The point pointed west. So why do we even care about these old accounts? Well, for 2 reasons. One, these accounts demonstrate that the phenomenon of UFOs has been happening ever since the beginning and all over the world. And 2, all these accounts were witnessed before any modern-day aircraft or secret military aircraft were traversing the skies. Want more proof? Look at Native American accounts about this. Look at the accounts from ancient South American cultures. Look at the accounts from ancient India, which are still being used by superpowers around the world in their modern-day space programs to this day. The Vedas, which are ancient Indian texts that date back to around 1500 BCE, they contain descriptions of flying machines known as vimanas. The Mahabharata, another ancient Indian epic, also contains references to vimanas. In one passage, a king is described as flying in a vimana to a distant city to visit his friends. In another story, a character describes a flying machine that can travel great distances, and it was equipped with weapons of mass destruction. Other ancient Indian texts describe how vimanas were able to travel into space and underwater. The Vimanika Shastra, which was translated in the 20th century, is literally akin to a pilot's manual for flying vimana. The text covers pilot controls, aerial routes, how to hover a craft, how to make it invisible, how to utilize what can only be described as radar. Some ancient Indian texts are so detailed and intricate that they actually contain diagrams that appear to show that vimanas were actually powered by mercury vortex engines, similar to the one NASA was working on back in the late 20th century. Moreover, the structural design of these vimanas has been directly recreated directly out of the text and tested in modern-day wind tunnels. And guess what they found? The design is aerodynamically sound and produces lift. All this from a craft from over 3,500 years ago. Even today in Southeast India, you can see firsthand cave drawings in a 1,000-year-old Jain temple called Thirumalai of what locals once called Chakra Vimana, which is literally translated as flying saucer. So what about modern day sightings? The United States has certainly put together a massive log of potential sightings over the years, no doubt. You may have heard of Project Blue Book, which was the code name for the systematic study of UFOs by the U.S. Air Force from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio from March 1952 through January 1970. Prior to Operation Blue Book, other projects of a similar nature existed, such as Project Sign, established in 1947, and Project Grudge in 1949. After Project Blue Book, several secret government agencies were still investigating UFO activity. The Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or ATIP, which was run by the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency, was first made public in December of 2017, though it had been operating between 2007 and 2012. Still, U.S. government programs to investigate UFOs continued, such as the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, or UAP Task Force, which was only made public in June of 2020. And let us not forget the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, which was set up in 2022, which is an office within the United States Office of the Secretary of Defense that investigates UFOs and other phenomena. Question: what's the budget of all these known programs? What's the budget of the still classified programs? We know that ATIP had a multi-million-dollar budget. Why would the U.S. government spend millions on something that doesn't exist? And keep in mind, this is a worldwide phenomenon, folks. From Russia to China, India to Iraq, and Australia to Peru, countries all over the world have their version of these UFO task forces. They too spend millions each year. And it's because they all have their version of a Roswell crash. In the late 1940s, we really began to see an uptick in UFO sightings and crashes. Ironically, this was just after the first atomic bombs were developed, tested, and unleashed on the world. Now, here are just a few notable incidents in U.S. history. The July 8, 1947 issue of the Roswell Daily Record featured a story announcing the Roswell Army Airfield capture of a flying saucer from a ranch near Roswell. The Roswell UFO incident involved the recovery of materials near Roswell, New Mexico in early July 1947, which have become since the subject of intense speculation and research. Now, there are widely divergent views on what actually happened. The United States military maintains that what was recovered was a top-secret research balloon that had crashed, whereas many UFOologists believe the wreckage was that of a crashed alien craft. The incident has evolved into a recognized and referenced pop culture phenomenon. From July 12th through the 29th of 1952, a series of UFO sightings were reported in Washington, D.C., and later became known as the Invasion of Washington. A July headline from the New York Times read, "Flying objects near Washington spotted by both pilots and radar. Air Force reveals reports of something perhaps saucers traveling slowly, but jumping up and down." The Phoenix Lights, sometimes called the Lights over Phoenix, were a series of widely sighted UFOs observed in the skies over the southwestern U.S. states of Arizona and Nevada on March 13, 1997. Lights of varying descriptions were seen by thousands of people between 7:30 and 10:30 p.m. local time in a space of about 300 miles from Nevada through Phoenix into the edge of Tucson. UFO proponents claimed they were part of aircraft unknown to man, while the United States Air Force identified them as flares dropped by A-10 Warthog aircraft which were on training exercises. Now, in 2007, former Arizona Governor Fife Symington came forward and admitted that he had seen a massive delta-shaped craft silently navigate over Squaw Peak during that time. On August 21, 2004, a triangular formation of reddish lights were seen at low to intermediate altitudes by hundreds of witnesses on 3 separate occasions in late 2004 and early 2005, producing multiple videos, photos, and mainstream local news coverage over 2 suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. The objects maneuvered slowly within a busy airspace near O'Hare International Airport. The incident was reported by local media. A year later, on November 7, 2006, at approximately 4:30 p.m., federal authorities at Chicago O'Hare International Airport received a report that a group of 12 airport employees were witnessing a metallic saucer-shaped craft hovering over Gate C-17. In 2010, 7 former United States Air Force officers detailed their experiences with aliens as they were flying over nuclear weapons facilities. At the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., they disclosed how UFOs have visited Air Force bases and how some have even succeeded in disabling nuclear missiles from being able to launch. Robert Salas, a former U.S. Air Force nuclear launch officer, asserted, "I want the Air Force, the government, to come forward and say this is a real phenomenon. It's a falsehood that UFOs are not a national security threat." On March 8, 2014, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 disappeared during a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The disappearance of the Boeing 777, with 227 passengers and 12 crew members, led to a massive search effort. Nearly a decade later, on a Reddit post sent on August 7, 2023, it included what looked like ultraviolet footage of a plane encircled by 3 moving objects. It was followed by another clip appearing to show the same phenomenon. The time and date stamps and structure of the airplane seemed to indicate that this was Flight 370. And as the footage shows, it certainly disappeared. On April 27, 2020, the Pentagon released 3 UFO videos in an effort to clear up any misconceptions on whether the footage was real or not. It's real, the Pentagon said, and they included links so the curious could download the footage for themselves. Now, here is that footage.
Did you talk to moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at that, man. Look at it fly. Dude, this is a f***ing drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is an LNS, dude. Well, if there's like another thing, it's rotating.
For every instant described in this episode, there are believers. For every instance described in this episode, there are skeptics. There are those that have debunked everything, and there are those that have debunked the debunkers. There is proof of government disinformation, lies, and deception. And I believe that all anybody wants is the simple, unadulterated truth. So what do you think, friends? Do physical UFOs, physical craft, exist? I think at this point you have to have more faith to believe they don't exist than to believe that they do exist. Now keep in mind, during this entire brief historical overview of UFO sightings, not once did I mention one important question. If UFOs are real, then who are the pilots? And that, my friends, is the question we will be discussing in another soon-to-come episode of the Ryan Files. Thank you so much for tuning in this week, friends. Your support is so appreciated. For all of you who have subscribed to this channel, thank you. If you enjoy the Ryan Files, please hop over to theryanfiles.com and check out the site. Also, click on Become an Agent, where you will be directed to my Patreon page. And all the current agents of the Ryan Files, guess what? They were able to watch a behind-the-scenes studio recording session for this video last Saturday night. And of course, if you become a 00 agent of the Ryan Files, you'll get your very own membership card to the Ryan Files. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, and of course, please subscribe to this channel. It makes a huge difference as we scrape and crawl our way through the YouTube algorithm, but we will eventually break through those barriers. I promise. Thanks again for tuning in. Are UFOs or UAPs real? I can't wait to read your comments. And I appreciate you watching because it's going to certainly help lay the groundwork for the soon to be upcoming episode about aliens. Stay amazing and stay curious, my friends, and I'll see you next week right here on the Ryan Files.
The Ryan Files.
You doing okay, Finn? Here, I'm going to give you something. There you go. You want that? What's that? What is that? She'll hold on to that thing forever. All right. Let's take a break for a second.